In 1929, the American stock market lost 89% of its value in 3 years. Thousands of banks collapsed, millions lost everything. The wealthiest nation on earth was brought to its knees, not by a foreign enemy, not by a natural disaster, but by the very financial system that 6 people in this video spent their entire lives building. 5 of them never saw it coming. 1 of them did. He got out, and he made a fortune while the world burned. These are the old guard, the architects, the monopolists, the miser, the statesman. Together, they did not just participate in American capitalism, they invented the rules, built the infrastructure, and in some cases, broke the very system they created. The golden thread connecting all 6? Power is never taken, it is engineered. Every person in this video built something the rest of the economy had no choice but to move through. A railroad, a pipeline, a steel mill, a vault, a bank, or a government office. Control the structure, control the game. Before we meet the first titan, drop a comment right now. Who do you think is the most influential person in American financial history? Write your answer down. Let's see if it changes by the end of this video. Cornelius Vanderbilt, the Commodore, the man who moved America, 1810 to 1877. Before infrastructure, there is no economy. In the early 1800s, America had land, boundless, continent-spanning land. What it did not have was a reliable way to move things across it. Goods sat in warehouses for weeks. A journey from New York to Chicago took longer than a transatlantic voyage to Europe. The country was physically fragmented, and a fragmented country cannot build wealth at scale. Vanderbilt started with a $100 loan and a single ferryboat on New York Harbor. He ran the boat himself. He undercut competitor prices, made up the margin on volume, and reinvested every dollar. This is the oldest play in capitalism. Use scale to destroy price competition. By 40, he dominated Hudson River steamboat traffic. By 60, he turned his attention to something bigger: railroads. He understood leverage, the use of borrowed capital to control assets far larger than your own cash position. Vanderbilt deployed debt strategically to acquire railroad line after railroad line, stitching together a network from New York City to Chicago. When he controlled the rails, he controlled trade itself. Every bushel of grain, every bolt of fabric, every ton of coal moving east or west paid a toll to him. In 1867, rival railroad owners attempted to block his expansion into New York City by refusing to connect their lines at the city limits. Vanderbilt's response was immediate and surgical. He stopped accepting their passengers and freight. He let their trains sit idle at the border, their cargo rotting, their investors hemorrhaging money, until they surrendered unconditionally. He did not negotiate, he simply waited. Patience for Vanderbilt was not a virtue, it was a weapon. When Vanderbilt died in 1877, he left $100 million to his heirs, the largest private fortune in American history at that time. More permanently, he left behind the physical skeleton of American commerce. Without his rail network, there is no national market. Without a national market, there is no industrial age. He didn't build wealth, he built the system wealth moved through. Vanderbilt moved goods across America. Our next figure didn't care about moving things. He cared about owning the thing inside them, the fuel that made the entire machine run. John D. Rockefeller, the Standard, the master of monopoly. 1860 to 1911. Oil had just been discovered in Pennsylvania, and the industry looked exactly like what it was, a chaotic gold rush. Dozens of small refiners producing kerosene, the fuel that lit American homes before electricity. Prices swung violently week to week. Quality was inconsistent. The market was a mess of inefficiency, waste, and ruinous competition. Rockefeller saw not a mess, he saw a math problem waiting to be solved. In 1870, he founded Standard Oil of Ohio. His method was systematic and merciless. He approached smaller refiners with a choice: sell to me at my price, or I will undersell you until there is nothing left to sell. He negotiated secret rebates with the railroads, private kickbacks that gave Standard Oil lower shipping rates than any competitor could access. This is what economists call predatory pricing, using structural cost advantages to eliminate competition, not through a better product, but through financial suffocation. He also mastered arbitrage, exploiting price differences between markets. He bought crude cheap in Pennsylvania, refined it efficiently at his Cleveland plants, and sold it at prices rivals couldn't match because they were paying full freight rates while he was quietly not. Before long, Standard Oil controlled 90% of American oil refining. He had not invented oil, he had invented the industrial monopoly. Congressional investigations later revealed that Standard Oil ran a network of paid informants inside competitor companies, employees reporting on production volumes, pricing decisions, and internal strategy meetings. Rockefeller didn't just outcompete his rivals. He watched them, he studied them, he used their own intelligence against them before they even knew they were in a war. In 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court broke Standard Oil into 34 separate companies under antitrust law. Those 34 companies became the direct ancestors of ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP. The irony? Rockefeller owned shares in all of them. Breaking up his company made him wealthier. At peak wealth, adjusted for today's economy, John D. Rockefeller was worth approximately $400 billion, the wealthiest American who has ever lived. Rockefeller built his empire by owning what flowed through the pipes. Our next figure decided to own the material the pipes themselves and everything else was made from. Andrew Carnegie, the Steel King, the pioneer of corporate efficiency, 1870 to 1901.
America was building. Bridges, skyscrapers, more railroads, Vanderbilt's railroads. All of it needed steel. But steel production in the 1860s was slow, expensive, and wildly inconsistent. The industrial age had created a demand that the existing system could not supply. Carnegie looked at that gap and saw the largest business opportunity in American history. He studied the Bessemer process, a new technique that used blasts of air to strip impurities from iron, producing steel in minutes instead of days. He traveled to England, watched it operate, and returned to Pennsylvania convinced it would transform manufacturing. Then he did something no industrialist had attempted at scale. He applied pure corporate efficiency to heavy industry. Carnegie tracked every cost obsessively, every ton of coal burned, every man-hour of labor, every percentage point of material waste. He drove unit costs down relentlessly, then passed the savings to customers as lower prices, undercutting competitors and capturing market shares simultaneously. This is called vertical integration, owning every stage of your supply chain. Carnegie owned the iron ore mines in Minnesota, the coal fields in Pennsylvania, the railroads that transported them, and the mills that converted them into finished steel. No supplier could price gouge him because he had eliminated all suppliers. In 1892, Carnegie was vacationing in Scotland while his mill manager Henry Frick deployed Pinkerton agents, a private army, to break a workers' strike at Homestead, Pennsylvania. The confrontation turned violent. 12 men died on the riverbank outside Carnegie's own mill. Carnegie wrote extensively about the moral obligations of wealth. He published essays on the dignity of labor. He was thousands of miles away when his workers were shot. The contradiction never left him. He spent the rest of his life trying to give away enough money to outrun it. In 1901, Carnegie sold his steel empire to J.P. Morgan for $480 million, roughly $17 billion today, and immediately began giving it away. Libraries, universities, Carnegie Hall. Over 2,500 public libraries built across the world. He died believing that a man who dies rich dies disgraced. Whether he succeeded in that bargain is a question history has never fully resolved. Carnegie built the material America needed, but our next figure didn't build industries. She studied them, quietly, patiently, and then exploited every weakness the men around her refused to see. Hetty Green, the Witch of Wall Street, the era's most ruthless investor, 1865–1916. In the late 19th century, women did not manage money. They inherited it, they married it, they were steered toward men who would manage it on their behalf. The financial system was not merely indifferent to female participation, it was structurally designed to prevent it. Hetty Green read the design carefully, then she ignored it entirely. She inherited roughly $6 million in 1865 and immediately did something Wall Street had never seen from a woman. She managed it herself. No broker, no partner, no male guardian. While the men of Wall Street placed leveraged bets on industrial stocks and railroad expansions, Hetty operated on a single iron principle: never overpay and always hold cash. She understood liquidity, the ability to convert assets to cash quickly without loss, as a strategic weapon before most professional investors could articulate the concept. When markets panicked in 1873, 1893, and 1907, everyone around her scrambled to sell burning assets at catastrophic discounts. Hetty had spent years holding cash. She bought. She lent money to New York City itself during the Panic of 1907, the same crisis that would force J.P. Morgan to intervene. She set her own terms. She took no losses. She wore the same black dress for decades, ate cold oatmeal heated on office radiators to avoid restaurant bills, lived in cheap boarding houses to avoid property taxes. Every dollar saved was a dollar available when opportunity appeared. When her son Ned injured his leg as a child, Hetty reportedly took him to a charity clinic dressed as a poor woman to avoid medical fees. The leg was ultimately amputated. Critics blamed her legendary frugality for the delay in proper treatment. Hetty denied it for the rest of her life. The full truth was never established. She was called a witch, a miser, an aberration. She was the only woman in every room she entered. She was worth more than almost every man in those rooms, and they never forgave her for either fact. When Hetty Green died in 1916, her estate was valued at approximately $100 million, between $2 and $4 billion in today's terms. She remains the wealthiest self-made female investor in American history. She built it without a broker, without a mentor, without a single partner, and without anyone's permission. She didn't find a choke point in an industry. She found it in discipline itself, the rarest commodity on Wall Street then as now. If you're finding this deep dive into financial history valuable, hit subscribe right now. We are doing this for 30 days straight, and tomorrow's video on the men who tried to destroy everything these titans built goes even deeper. You do not want to miss it. Hetty Green proved that patience and cash could beat the entire market. Our next figure understood something none of the others did. In a true systemic crisis, individual discipline is not enough. Someone has to hold the entire structure together. J.P. Morgan, the architect, the man who saved America, 1870 to 1913. America in 1907 had no central bank, no Federal Reserve, no government lender of last resort. When panic struck, when depositors rushed banks simultaneously and institutions could not meet withdrawals, there was no institutional mechanism to stop the collapse. The financial system was a chain, a powerful, prosperous 130-year-old chain with no anchor. Morgan had spent 4 decades becoming that anchor. His bank, J.P. Morgan & Co., was the financial architecture behind U.S. Steel, General Electric, and AT&T. He had restructured the railroads that Vanderbilt built after they collapsed in the 1990s. In 1895, when the U.S. Treasury's gold reserves ran dangerously low and the government faced potential default, Morgan organized a private syndicate that provided $62 million in gold to stabilize the dollar. No law required him to act. He acted because no one else could. In October 1907, panic struck again. Banks across New York began failing. Crowds formed outside institutions demanding their deposits. The stock exchange teetered on closure. Morgan locked the most powerful bankers in America in his personal library at 36th Street in Manhattan and refused to let them leave until they agreed to pool their capital and inject liquidity into the failing institutions. He performed in private exactly what a central bank is designed to do in public. He used leverage in its most powerful form, not financial leverage, but reputational leverage. The entire market's confidence in his name was the collateral. His word was the instrument. His library was the Federal Reserve for one night. A senator asked Morgan during a congressional investigation whether commercial credit was based primarily on money or property. Morgan replied, "No, sir, the first thing is character." The room went silent because everyone in it knew he was right and that he had just described why a single private citizen had been able to save the United States Treasury twice when the government itself could not. The near collapse of 1907 convinced Congress that a private citizen's willingness to act could no longer be the difference between financial stability and national catastrophe. They began designing the Federal Reserve System explicitly because what Morgan had done proved it was necessary, and explicitly because his mortality proved it was not sufficient. Morgan died in 1913, the same year the Federal Reserve was created. His final act, in essence, was to make himself unnecessary. Morgan built the system and held it together when it broke. But one figure watched all of it, the booms, the manias, the crashes, from the outside. He studied the machine that Morgan built, identified exactly when it would fail, and quietly stepped aside before it did. Bernard Baruch, the lone wolf, the prophet of Wall Street, 1890 to 1965. By the early 20th century, the financial system the old guard had built was functioning magnificently, and that was precisely the danger. When everything works, everyone becomes a genius. Credit expands, speculation accelerates, caution is mistaken for cowardice. The system had grown too large, too interconnected, and too confident for anyone inside to see it clearly. Baruch saw it clearly because he was never fully inside it. Bernard Baruch arrived on Wall Street in 1891 with $500 and a methodical mind. He became a self-made millionaire by 30, trading commodities and railroad stocks with a discipline that made Hetty Green's approach look casual. He worked alone, kept no permanent office, took no partners, joined no syndicates. His edge was information, not insider information, public information, gathered more carefully than anyone else bothered to gather it. He read every annual report, every government statistic, every agricultural survey. He understood that markets are not driven by facts, but what people believe about facts, and that the gap between the two is where profit lives. This is the concept of market psychology, the recognition that asset prices reflect collective human emotion as much as fundamental value. Fear drives prices below value. Greed drives them above it. Baruch made it his life's work to identify which emotion was currently in control and bet accordingly. In 1928, more than a year before the crash, Baruch quietly liquidated most of his stock portfolio. He told associates the market had become a speculation machine detached from economic reality. He watched the Dow climb to its historic peak in September 1929. Then he watched it fall. The panic of 1929 wiped out fortunes that had taken generations to build. Baruch emerged wealthier than when it began. A young journalist asked Baruch in 1929 how he knew to get out. He said a shoeshine boy gave him stock tips that week. When shoeshine boys are giving stock tips, he said, it is time to sell everything. It became one of the most quoted lines in the history of financial markets. What made it devastating was its simplicity. When everyone is in, there is no one left to buy. The only direction remaining is down. Baruch went on to advise 6 U.S. presidents: Wilson, Harding, Kluger, Roosevelt, Truman, and Eisenhower. He chaired the War Industries Board during World War I, effectively becoming the economic commander of the American war effort. He represented the United States in early UN atomic energy negotiations after World War II. He operated for 70 years from park benches, private correspondence, and quiet telephone calls. He accumulated no empire. He built no institution. He left no building with his name on it. He understood the most dangerous truth in financial history. The system always wins in the end. The only question worth asking is where you were standing when it resets. 6 people, 6 industries, 6 eras, 1 system. They each found the choke point. Vanderbilt found it in movement. You cannot build an economy without a way to move goods. Rockefeller found it in fuel. You cannot run a machine without energy. Carnegie found it in materials. You cannot build a city without steel. Hetty found it in liquidity. In a crisis, cash is the only thing that cannot be taken from you. Morgan found it in trust. Without confidence, no financial system functions for a single day. And Baruch found something none of the others fully grasped: the choke point in the system itself. He understood that every empire these 5 built would eventually be subject to the same force, collective human irrationality, and that the wisest position is to be the one person in the room who refuses to forget that. 5 of them built the machine. 1 of them learned how to survive it. The question they leave behind for every generation of investors that follows is the same question. Are you building the machine, or are you standing close enough to see when it overheats? These 6 built the American financial empire, but tomorrow we go inside the men who tried to tear it down, the trust busters, the reformers, and the one senator who put J.P. Morgan on the witness stand and nearly broke him. Click here to watch The Trust Busters: How America Tried to Destroy Everything These Titans Built.